We have the biological aspect of fatherhood, but as children of fathers who have abandoned them would argue that biological definition of father may have very little to do with the definition of fatherhood. Traditionalists might argue that a father is a person who brings home the bacon. But in our ever-changing world and our economy, we know that it is often a shared responsibility or falls completely on the shoulders of the mothers, either both parents or the mothers themselves. Oftentimes, grandparents and children often also have to contribute financially to a family's well-being. Some might argue that a father is the one who disciplines. You just wait till your father gets home and hears what you were doing. Probably some of us had heard that. But I know that like my mother's family growing up, my grandfather was the quietest of men. Never raised his voice for anything and never raised his hand to anyone. My grandmother, on the other hand, had the holy terror, and my mother and her brothers and sisters, you didn't want to get her angry. So the act of discipline oftentimes falls either on both parents as well. Most aspects you'll find of fatherhood are shared by mothers. There's love, there's nurture, there's discipline, there's teaching, and the list could go on and on and on. I want to talk with you today about one aspect of fatherhood which is shared by mothers, but I want to consider this aspect of fatherhood in light of our commissioning service of the Camp Donegal mothers. And that is the aspect of fatherhood which is sending. Again, this is a shared responsibility, but fathers are called to be senders. More specifically, we're going to focus on God the Father as a sender and what that means for earthly fathers. So, we have to start by asking the question, is God the Father truly a sender? How can we be sure that God sends people? Who did God ever send anywhere? Well, let's think about that for a second. Who did God send? In Genesis chapter 12, God sent Abraham. Genesis 12:1. You can see this on the overhead. Genesis 12:1 and following reads this. The Lord said to Abram, leave your country, your people, and your father's household, and go to a land I will show you. God sent Abraham from his homeland to Israel, so that one day Abraham's descendants might inherit the promised land. But in order to inherit the promised land, they would have to eventually escape from slavery in Egypt. Who did God send to lead his people out of Egypt? Not Charlton Heston. Who said Charlton Heston? Moses, that's right, Moses. Exodus chapter 3 says this, so now go. I am sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt. What about the prophet Isaiah? Isaiah had a vision in which he was in the presence of God, and he describes this vision, and he hears God speak. He says in Isaiah 6:8, then I heard the voice of the Lord saying, whom shall I send? And who will go for us? And I said, here am I, send me. Isaiah wasn't the only prophet sent by God. Jeremiah 1:4 says this, the Lord gave Jeremiah this message, I knew you before I formed you in your mother's womb. Before you were born, I set you apart and appointed you as my prophet to the nations. Sovereign Lord, I said, I can't speak for you. I'm too young. The Lord replied, say I'm too young. For you must go wherever I send you and say whatever I tell you. Then, of course, there's perhaps the most famous of prophets, Jonah. Jonah 1:1 says this, the Lord gave this message to Jonah, son of Amittai, get up and go to the great city of Nineveh. Announce my judgment against it, because I have seen how wicked the people are. You'll remember that Jonah hated the people of Nineveh and didn't want to go to Nineveh, and he ran the other way. Eventually, they got him swallowed by a great, huge fish, which spit him out on the land, and he went, finally, ultimately, all of God's sendings were only to prepare the way for the final, the pinnacle, the top sending of all. None of the prophets were able to accomplish the task needed to be done to create a pathway to heaven. The path is through the one and the only, the Son of God, Jesus Christ. Almost everybody is familiar with John 3:16, which says, God sent his Son so that whoever will believe in him will not perish, but will have everlasting life. God the Father truly is a sender. Fathers are to be senders of their children. But sending children is more than just kicking them out. I see a twinkle in your eye back there, Bill Rice. Like, yes, let's send them out. Get them out of here. Sending is more than just kicking your children out of your house. Sending includes the hard work of preparation. The father doesn't bring his child home from the hospital and say, oh, how cute, let's get them a little stick, put a little red bag on it, and put them out. Say, go ahead and don't let the door hit you on the way out. Father's job is to prepare their children to send them out. God told Abraham, go to the land I will show you. God was going with Abraham, leading him, guiding him. Moses was afraid that he would not succeed in God sending him. And so Moses said, please, God, don't do this. And God said, because you're so afraid, I'm going to help you. I'm going to give you your brother Aaron, and he'll speak for you. And your sister Miriam, and she'll help you. Isaiah, on the other hand, was very eager to go. He said, here am I, send me. Jeremiah thought he was too young, just like Timothy in the passage we read earlier that Charlie read for us. But God said, I will give you the words. Jonah, he didn't even want to succeed, let alone go. But God made him and his mission a success. God does prepare those whom he sends. Sometimes they just don't realize it. They don't realize that what's happening is in preparation for the mission. Perhaps the most detailed and specific example of God's preparation for sending is that of the 3 years that Jesus spent with his disciples before sending them out. Did you know that the word apostle means sent one? The apostles were not apostles until Jesus sent them out. Up until that point, they were disciples, ones who were disciplined or guided or taught. And then when Jesus sent them out, all of a sudden, now they become apostles or sent ones. Jesus spent 3 years teaching his followers and calling them disciples. But then he apostled them and sent them out on a couple of different occasions in order to make other people disciples with the ultimate goal of making them apostles. See, that's the process. You become a disciple and then you become an apostle. Each of the gospel writers records these sending out in different perspectives or from different perspectives. Matthew 28:18 says this, Jesus came and said to them, all authority in heaven and earth has been given to me. Go, therefore, and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. John 20:21 says this. Jesus is speaking. He says, peace be with you. As the Father has sent me, so I am sending you. Matthew 10:16, Jesus again, I am sending you out like sheep among wolves. Therefore be shrewd as snakes and innocent as doves. He called the 12 together and began sending them out in Mark chapter 6, verse 7. Sending them out 2 by 2 and gave them authority over unclean spirits. Matthew 10:40, anyone who receives you receives me. And anyone who receives me receives the Father who sent me. Jesus' preparation of the apostles was meticulous. He spent 3 years eating, sleeping, working alongside, teaching night and day.